even with what Brandon said, there is one group of parents who have to have a unique and heartbreaking conversation. Black parents have to talk to their children or feel compelled to talk to their children and warn them of the possibilities of being targeted because of race, and in many cases by people in authority. You have teenagers. How have you tried to prepare your kids to deal with the dangers of a racist society even today?
One of the most sobering moments that I had in all of this was the fact that I realized that I am now where my father was. My father had a fear of me, and I grew up, I was a straight A student, and, you know, I didn't have a record. I never went to jail. I didn't do anything wrong. But I had negative interactions with police when I was growing up. And I remember, you know, I would come home, tell my dad I got pulled over, and I would just see his face. And I'd be like, Dad, it's okay. You know, nothing happened. And he would say, you got to limit your interactions with police. You know, whenever you're in it, he gave me the talk. You de-escalate. You do what you got to do. You get out of it. I said the same thing to my kids. But I realized throughout this time, the vulnerability as a Black parent really sat with me. It really hit home during this time because I've got 4 kids. 2 are Black men, young Black men, 2 young Black women, and I can't protect them when they're out, you know? And I'm a big time movie producer, right? I can do whatever I can do to insulate them. But when they're out, they're just Black kids in America. And that is a tenuous position. That's a scary spot to be in, especially for a parent, when I know I can't always protect them. So all I can do is try to give them the tools to get out of a dangerous situation. It hit home when I realized this cycle is continuing. When will we have Black parents that don't have to have the talk about understand who you are in this country and how this country, certain elements of it, certain aspects of it will treat you. Understand that you are viewed a different way when you walk into a store, when you get pulled over than your white peers. When can we stop having that conversation? And I've been able to have some great conversations with my white friends. And I will say to them, as you talk to your kids, you know, I'm sure you think there's no way you're raising a Derek Chauvin, right? The monster that murdered George Floyd so callously. But don't accidentally raise an Amy Cooper, you know, the young woman in New York who weaponized her privilege and did that to Christian Cooper and said, you know, an African-American man is attacking me. Don't accidentally raise a child that, although, you know, they feel, oh, I'm not racist and I would treat everybody the same. When it comes down to it and they feel like they need to, their self-preservation may be on the line, they use and weaponize that white privilege because sometimes that's unconscious. And unless you really understand where you are and your privilege in this country, you can unconsciously be somebody that when it comes down to it, in a split second, you use your white privilege and put somebody that looks like me in danger. And so that's the thing I say to my white parents. Be honest with your kids. Be honest about where they are, what their privilege has gotten them. Doesn't mean they don't have a hard life, but their hard life is not based on the color of their skin and the way people perceive them. Be honest with them about that and the fact that some of their peers do not have that same experience.
Jelani, what can we learn from other cases of genocide and crimes against humanity that helps us make sense of our current situation in the United States?
Sure. I mean, so we know enough to understand how some of this functions. That there are the aspects of dehumanization, of othering, of seeing things that are now happening in American politics with a degree of frequency that should be alarming to any sensible observer. But when we speak of people in metaphors or analogies to animals, particularly reviled animals, you know, rats, and you've seen the rhetoric coming from even the White House, referring to the city of Baltimore as rat-infested, or referring to people who are undocumented as animals and the like. And that sets the stage for moving people beyond the parameters of their normal humanity. We're thinking these people are outside the fold of what our morality would typically prohibit. And so we see the restriction of rights, which is justified in this way. And ultimately, this begins to culminate in acts of violence, sometimes isolated, sometimes acts of violence that are participated in by large groups of people. You can look at the history of lynching in this country and see that. And the dynamic here is, one of the things that you think about as a historian is that when I look at the images of lynching, when I look at the images of violence that was used to prevent the integration of schools in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, and beyond, many people would say, oh, well, these are things that happened in the past that doesn't pertain to us anymore. But I look at those things and say, well, this is a guidepost, or this is a warning of the things that human beings are capable of doing again under the right circumstances. And so I think that the entire spectrum, whether we're talking about Rwanda, whether we're talking about Nazi Germany, whether we're talking about the incidents that we've seen of mass shootings and mass homicides in New Zealand and in this country that were driven by race, all of these things kind of share a similar DNA in dehumanizing other individuals so that you can do anything to them and not feel any remorse.
Incredible words. Will, Jelani, Sasha, Brandon, thank you. Thank you for this conversation. Thank you for your honesty. And thank you for even being so vulnerable to talk about your own families. That's our protective zone. But we know we have to open up in as many ways as possible so that we can help heal as best we can. So thank you all for your time today.
Thank you, Tamara.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Look, there is clearly much, much more to be discussed. But for now, I want to thank all of our guests tonight for voicing their thoughts. It's been truly enlightening. The conversation is a difficult one, and we know it's one that needs to continue outside of this show. And for you at home, thank you for tuning in. For everyone here at Discovery, I'm Tamron Hall. Have a safe night.